Warning, this video may contain spoilers for late parts in the game. If you plan on playing this at some point, turn back now. You have been warned. Welcome back to another review. Today we have the Dreamcast Sword of the Berserk Guts Rage. I've heard a couple various different opinions on this game, and I wanted to finally play the game to form my own opinion on it. I played the beginning a couple times without really knowing how the game works through emulation, and it took so long for me to get back into the game that I also just ended up buying the original, so I actually played the game in all of its original glory, and I did end up liking the experience as a whole. Before we get into that, let's talk about the basics. This is your pretty basic hack and slash game, where you play as Guts, who blazes his way through humans and Mandragoran alike, along with some demons, or like ghosts, with a surprising arsenal of weapons to use, which includes his iconic Dragon Slayer sword, a hand cannon, grenades, throwing knives, and a hand crossbow. Everything has a finite number of uses besides, obviously, a sword. You'll probably notice from the get-go, though, that you're also able to just punch the shit out of enemies, and you can easily get back to this mode with the L button that either sheathes or draws his sword. You can guard with the Y button with either your sword out or not. The other weapons are used through holding the R button and pressing any of the face buttons. One of these is actually not a weapon, but how you'll be healing between each stage, which is Fairy Dust. Feel free to get your health down as low as possible though, due to it giving a full heal. Back to what I said on there being a finite amount of items. You can get more through beating some of the stages or through breaking random boxes scattered around the game. One final bit about fighting is that after getting in enough hits and getting hit enough, you will enter a Berserk Mode where you won't need to worry about a big piece of the game, which is that your sword gets stuck on like buildings and stuff, but I'll talk about that a bit later. The Berserk Mode also increases speed, attack, and defense. As for the actual gameplay, there is no manual saving, but after a couple stages, you'll get a notification on screen that says new stage reached. After this point, if you lose all your lives, you'll end up going back there instead of beginning the game. One of the biggest gameplay bits is that there are quick time events in the game, with this being among one of the first to start utilizing them. There aren't a whole lot, but I believe the route you end up going changes depending on if you're able to do them or not. This is also true just with the game in general, as the manual hints that there are shortcuts in the stages that can be shown through the use of smashing stuff with your sword. There are a couple other modes that unlock after you beat the game, but I didn't really mess around with them. Fan speculation has this game taking place between volumes 22 and 23 of the manga if you want to really get into it while going through the series, especially since Miura actually worked on the story of the game, and don't worry, this game really follows the theming of the series. The game begins with Guts happening upon a caravan that is getting robbed, with the bandits saying that they're gonna sell Casca and Rita, a girl from the caravan, off. Guts murders them, and Rita asks that Guts and Co. attend a performance they're doing in the next town. Through Puck's insistence, they end up going, but it quickly goes south when Job, another member of Rita's caravan, loses his hood, revealing a strange growth on his body, with the villagers immediately turning on him and throwing stones, with Job then transforming into a grotesque monster that Guts ends up taking out, much to Rita's dismay. After some heated words, a carriage arrives and Baron Balzac, yes, I know, steps out and thanks Guts for taking care of the monster, explaining that their town had been suffering from these things he has dubbed Mandragorans. He then notices Casca and invites them to his castle while having the guards arrest Rita after they have left. The Baron then reveals that he is looking for a way to cure people from this affliction and wants to obtain the rest of a Mandragoran heart. Balzac having only been able to tear off a piece of it, as it would hopefully be the last step in order to figure out everything in order to heal people, and offers Guts a deal to heal Casca in exchange for using his formidable skills in order to take the heart, informing him that he'll likely cross paths with a nun named Eriza, who is protecting the heart. On the other side of the castle, Casca and Puck are messing around when they see Rita being dragged in by soldiers. This is interrupted by more people coming in and storming the castle, unleashing the Mandragorans that Balzac was keeping in his dungeons. Guts fights his way through the castle to find Casca, but only finds Puck and Rita's dog, who leads them to a cave. Guts confronting the rebels with the leader, Dunith, coming out and explaining that he kept Casca safe underground. He then explains that Balzac isn't who he appears, at least not since the Mandragoran plague began. Guts then awakens the spirits inside the graveyard. He is forced to fight his way to the underground, where he is finally reunited with Casca and Rita, though very shortly, as Guts wants to make haste to give Balzac the heart, even after learning that he's a tyrant, much to Duneth's protests. He concedes, though, after his wife argues that even if there's barely a chance to cure their son of the curse, they should take it. Guts begrudgingly leaves Casca with Rita and follows Duneth to a small village. One of the rebels takes a flower to the ground where the people of the village transform into Mandragorans and end up killing Duneth, Guts defeating the rest. A nun comes out and puts the flower back in its place, and the people calm down. Rita then appears, saying that Balzac ended up sending some men down who captured Casca in order to further push him to taking the heart. He tells the nun named Teresa to tell him where the heart is, and she tries to relay a story of a boy named Nico who ended up dying one night while holding a strange item that we know is a Beharit. Guts doesn't give one shit, with Teresa just going into the church. Guts then follows her and finds out that she too is a Mandragoran, guarding the Mandragoran tree that the young boy Nico had become. Guts defeats her and cuts out Nico, though Teresa takes him and runs outside. Once outside, she sees the entire village has been slaughtered by the command of Guillaume, Balzac's advisor. Teresa then chooses to commit suicide in order to protect all that is left of Nico by running back into the church and burning along with it. Something falls off while she runs inside, and Rita picks up the Beharit from the story. Guts is about to get into a fight with Guillaume when Zod shows up, and they flee, with Guts left to take on Zod. Zod then leaves after a while, who is happy at how strong Guts has gotten. As Zod leaves, the Mandragoran saplings start to die with the death of the tree, freeing the people who immediately begin to mourn the loss of their loved ones and blame Guts. On the other side of things, Punk and Casca, who had been freed earlier by Zod, stumble through rooms before coming across a girl who Puck assumes is Balzac's daughter, whose state of mind is pretty similar to Casca's. Hearing voices and hurriedly hiding in a secret room where they find a piece of the Mandragoran heart that Balzac had been able to take. Casca picks it up, but Balzac appears and attempts to take it back, the scuffle awakening the heart and riling the Mandragorans still in the dungeon. Guts and Rita fight their way back into the castle, finding Balzac's daughter, with Guts eventually slaying Guillaume and coming before Balzac in his throne room. Rita asks what happened to make him the way he is now, and he explained that he once ruled kindly until pressures of ruling and his wife's illness completely broke him, only finding happiness in spilling blood. Rita responding by asking how his daughter feels. Balzac then reveals that the young girl is his wife. He had used an extract from the heart to heal his wife's condition, which it indeed did, but with the unforeseen consequences of keeping her from aging and eroding her mind to that of a mindless child. Balzac then basically says fuck it, and downs a substance that turns him into a Mandragoran, with Guts forced to defeat him. Guts and Rita run off to find Casca, but Rita drops the Beharit next to Balzac. They find Casca trapped inside a giant Mandragoran that Guts brutally saves, saving Casca, who actually seems to recognize Guts for a moment before reverting back to her childish mental state. Guts senses a disturbance coming from Balzac and rushes back to the throne room, where he sees that Balzac used the Beharit and offered his wife Annette to the God Hand, being reborn as an apostle, pissing off the wrong goddamn dude, with Guts slaying him with absolutely no remorse. The town then begins to return to normal as Guts, Casca, and Puck part ways with a seemingly hopeful Rita. After the credits, the Skull Knight appears and takes the Beharit that Balzac used. This game starts off pretty strong and ends just as strong, if not more. The boss segments are tense and epic, especially the final boss, and the same can be said about the accompanying music. The combat for the most part is pretty great, and while not being devastatingly hard, it's still a good challenge, mostly due to there being only a couple checkpoints in the game. The secondary weaponry gives some nice options throughout playtime as well. There's only one or two things I really had problems with, and the first bit is the beginning segment being so close quarters that Guts' blade constantly gets caught on the buildings and other surroundings. I just didn't quite find a way to deal with this besides switching to punching, but how many punches you need compared to how many enemies appear doesn't balance out, and I just chose to deal with the sword getting caught. The second qualm is with the running segment with the tendrils. I just dislike these segments in all games, but considering it's right after a boss, and if you run out of lives you have to fight the boss to have a shot at the segment again, is extremely annoying. Overall, I think this game is pretty damn fun. Stressful due to not knowing when the next save would be while losing some lives, but I think it upped the ante and was pretty in line with the theming of Berserk, which is pretty much just always being on edge for the next horrific thing to happen. The story works really well too, with paralleling Guts' journey, and even possibly thinking, what if Guts decided to offer something earlier in life and became an apostle due to all the shit he went through just as a child. Hope you enjoyed, and see you next video.